Good morning and welcome to part 2 of the accordion restoration. In the first part we took out the reed blocks from the treble side, and I marked 1 and 2 because I just marked the reed blocks 1 and 2 so I know which way they go back into the treble side of the accordion. So I've got the reed blocks here. This is one of them and that's the other one. Now the next job is to take all the reeds out, take off the valves, clean it all up, revalve them with new valves, and then re-wax them back into the reed block. Before I do that, there's something important I've got to do, and that is to work out what the pattern of these reeds is, because on one side of the reed block you have a set of reeds, and on the opposite side you have reeds of the same general pitch. So if there's an A on that side, it'll be an A on this side, but it's just tuned slightly differently, so it's tuned slightly higher on one side than the other, so that when you get the two reeds playing together, so the air's moving through both of those holes, for example, you get like kind of tremolo effect, which gives you that kind of classic accordion sound. So on this reed block here, this reed here and the reed on the other side are going to be the same pitch, but one's going to be tuned slightly differently higher than the other. Now before I take them all out, I need to know which side is which. So which has got the kind of the lower tuning, or perhaps the reeds tuned at concert pitch, and what side's got the higher tuning where the reeds are just slightly above to give the tremolo. So I need to work out which is which is the higher and which is the lower tuned pit reeds. So I'm going to choose a reed on this side and play it through the accordion table. Now if I go to the opposite side and play the same kind of opposite reed, if you like, let's see what it sounds like. Now that sounds lower than that one. So I think this edge, this side here, is the higher tuned reeds and this one is the lower. I'll just do another reed just to check. So let's do that one there. Yeah, so I can actually hear the difference between the two. So on the reed block I'm going to put low on there and high on there. So I know these ones are tuned slightly lower than these ones, because I'm going to keep these reeds separate from these reeds when I take them out. I don't want to get them muddled up, otherwise the tuning will be just all over the place. So now I know, put that back a minute, now I know which side of the reed block is which. So on this side the reeds are tuned slightly higher than on this side. I said they're kind of paired up. I can now start taking the reeds out, but I'm going to put them in a particular order. So I've got some paper here, and I'm going to make sure that when I take the slightly higher tuned set of reeds out, they're going to go on one particular place, and then the slightly lower set on a different place, so they don't get muddled up. So that's what I've kind of set up there. Now to get the reeds out, this is quite an easy job, but you just got to be a little bit careful. I've got my trusty Swiss Army knife. So I'm going to start at the lowest reed on the lower set of reeds, if you like, and you've got wax holding in the reed. Now what you need to do is get yourself a fine blade or something and just very carefully get that blade to go into the wax and then lever out the reed. Now this is just a little bit, I'll just put this down so you can see what I'm doing. This is a little bit of a careful job. So as you go in, what you're trying to do is lift up the reed by just going into the wax a little bit without damaging the wood. So I've lifted up the reed there, but I've not damaged the wood. So once you've got it lifted, out it comes. Now that's going to go down on my little bit of paper in the right order, so I can go along and I can lift out these reeds. So what I'll do, I'll get all these reeds out on this side and put them in order on there. So I'll come back in a sec. Okay, so all of the reeds have been taken out, and on my little bit of paper you can see this down here, I've just put them all in the correct order for that set of reeds. So the next step is to clean up the reed block. Now this wax is quite brittle. It's quite hard. So you need the correct tool for getting this wax off. You want to get it as clean as you can and as smooth as you can, so all the reed chambers are completely clean and smooth, and the more care you can take with getting that completely clean and smooth, the better the job will be. So as in anything with accordion repair, the neater and more carefully you can do it, the better the end result. There's no point rushing it and making a mess. Just take extra care. I've got a couple of tools that I use. One is a kitchen kind of cutlery knife, which I've flattened off at the end and sharpened, so it's a bit like a chisel really. I haven't told my wife I've done this, but it's okay. I think that's quite a nice little tool. Also the trusty Swiss Army knife is a good one, and I've also got some fairly fine grade sandpaper just to finish off the job. So I'll just show you on one. So with my little knife, I'm going to use the knife and I'm going to use it a little bit like a chisel. So I'm going to be pushing carefully down into the wax but not into the wood. So basically it's just a scraper. It's going to have almost just getting into the wax but not into the wood. So what I'm going to do is go along and get as much of the wax off the reed block as I can without damaging any of the wood with my little scraper. I'll also use my little blade just to do some scraping, and then I'll finish off with a bit of sandpaper just to get it really smooth. So I won't show you me doing this because it's not that exciting, but I'll do this and I'll show you what my end result looks like. Okay. Here we go. So I've taken out all of the reeds. I've cleaned up the reed chambers and scraping, carefully scraping, not scraping into the wood, just scraping off the wax, and some fine grade sandpaper, and it's all cleaned up really, really nicely. So that's that side. I have done that side, I do that bit, so that's that one ready to go. That's come out well. Now the next step is to clean and sort out the reeds. Now we'll just take the first reed. First of all, the leather valves, I'm not going to keep these, so I'm just going to peel those off. And actually that glue on that one hardly holding it on at all, so that really wasn't going to last anyway. And then you've got the residue of wax on the reed plate. So the next thing I'm going to do is going to get as much of that wax off as I can, maybe using a trusty Swiss Army knife just to get as much of that residue off. And also little bits of glue where the valve has been stuck on to the reed plate. So I might just use a very tiny scraping with a blade, or maybe a tiny bit of very fine sandpaper just to get that residue of glue off. So that's the next thing. I'm going to get all the reeds basically cleaned up to start first clean up, if you like, and then I'll show you what I'll do next. There we go. That reed has been cleaned, and the reed itself hasn't got any corrosion on it, so it's actually in quite good shape. And if I just give it a little ting with my fingernail, I can hear a nice little ting from the reed itself, and I can look at the reed and see it's actually seems to be nice and straight, and it's in pretty good condition. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do that to all of the reeds. Now once I've got them all done like this, I'm going to give them a final check over, and if there's any kind of little bits of surface rust or corrosion anywhere, I've just got some very, very fine sandpaper. I'm just going to give them a final little clean up and just make sure there's no rust or corrosion on the reed. If the reeds were really grubby and mucky, I have got an ultrasonic cleaner that I could put all the reeds in with a cleaning solution, and then make sure when I bring them out I'll dry them off thoroughly. But these reeds are actually in pretty nice shape, so I think just a clean up and a little bit of very fine sandpaper just to give any surface stuff off would be fine. So that's what I'm going to do with all of these reeds now. Okay, so final part of this little video really, because I've covered taking the reeds out, taking off the valves, cleaning up the reeds. So the reeds are in good shape on this particular one, so they haven't got rusty, they're actually in pretty nice shape. The other thing I'm going to do before I start putting the valves on is just checking the reed tip height on the reeds. Now the reed tip, we'll just get a little fine blade here. So if I can just hold that. So the reed is sitting, this is difficult to show actually, maybe that way, is sitting above the reed plate. Now, what I'm looking for on my reeds is that there's the right height of the reed above the reed plate. Now, I'm looking for a gap at the end between the reed tip and the plate. And if it's too big, a gap, then you'll need a little bit more air to move over that reed to get it to start working. So if you've got a really big gap there, you're going to have to put a lot of air through to get it to move. If the gap's too small, you might find the reed chokes and the air goes through the reed one way or the other, but it doesn't make it work because it's just choking in the reed slot. So what I'm looking for is a gap at the end of the same thickness as the metal of the reed is the gap I'm looking for. Now on this particular reed, on this side, the gap looks absolutely spot on. On this side, the gap looks significantly bigger. It's kind of like almost 3 times that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to carefully change the height of that reed, of the gap. So I need a little tool. So I'll just get my tools ready. 1 second. Okay, so just the final little bit really. I've got, oopsie, I've got my reed here. One of the reed tips is a little bit high, so I'm going to carefully, with a little file here, is push down in the middle of the reed, or slightly between the middle and the rivet, and I'm just going to bend carefully that reed by flexing it downwards until I've changed the tip height of that reed so it's equal to the one on the other side. As I said, it's the same, roughly the same width or thickness of the reed. So I've done that with that one. That looks good. So I'll do that with all the reeds. So I've taken all the reeds out. I'm going to clean them all up, make sure that they're all good, and make sure the reed heights are looking good. And that's that done for this stage of the video. So all the reeds are out, cleaned up, the reed heights have been checked, and in the next video I'll go through putting on some new valves and also going into waxing them into the reed block. Okay, thanks for watching.